Okay, so you know how sometimes when you hear about like these big musical collaborations, it kind of feels a little bit forced,
Yeah.
like put together by like a committee or you know what I mean?
Right.
But I gotta say, Elton John and Brandi Carlile,
Mm.
I mean, that really got my attention when I first heard about that.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
These two artists with like totally different sounds and, they're coming from such different places in their
Yeah,
careers.
totally different generations.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So to see them come together now, it's like, what is that all about?
Well, it seems like it's more than just like a, typical collaboration.
Yeah.
This really feels like a convergence of something pretty special.
Mhm.
And for this deep dive, we've really like immersed ourselves in all these recent interviews
Yeah.
and discussions from both Elton and Brandy to kind of get to the bottom of how this all came together
Yeah.
and what makes it so compelling. You know what's at the heart of it.
Yeah. And from everything we've read and heard,
Mm.
I mean, this wasn't like some, big marketing ploy.
Right.
This isn't a record label thing.
No.
This partnership seems to have really grown from this like genuine and heartfelt connection,
Yeah.
almost like, like a musical pen pal situation
Mhm.
that blossomed into this real creative partnership.
Right.
And didn't it all start with a letter?
It did, yeah. And that initial connection, I think, speaks volumes.
Yeah.
What we're hoping to do today is to explore each of their individual artistic paths
Okay.
and kind of see how they've intertwined to create this new music. It's a really cool story about the power of musical influence, the beauty of mentorship, and these kind of unexpected moments
Right.
when you see admiration turn into collaboration.
Okay, so let's get into this origin story then.
Yeah,
A letter. And Las Vegas, that sounds like a movie.
it does, right?
How did this all begin?
Well, Brandi Carlile has said that she has been a huge Elton John fan for her entire life. I mean, a lifelong fan.
Yeah.
And after getting her first record deal, she moves to California and decides to reach out to him. And she does it in a pretty direct way.
Yeah.
She writes him a letter
Oh.
asking if he would consider playing piano on one of her songs.
Mm.
So I think that initial act really shows the courage of an artist, to
Yeah.
reach out to someone who's had such a profound impact on them.
Yeah, that's bold. I mean, did he just say, oh, sure, I'll send you a track?
Well, his response was actually really surprising.
Okay.
And honestly, I think even more meaningful. Instead of just agreeing to do it remotely,
Right.
Elton invited Brandy to his residency in Las Vegas.
Whoa.
Yeah. And that's where they started recording together,
Wow.
like in the midst of all that energy.
Wow.
So that proactive invitation really shows that there was a genuine interest there. It was
Right.
more than just a polite yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you imagine like meeting this icon that you've like idolized for years and then like immediately being in the studio with them?
Oh my God.
I mean, that must have been so intense and like creatively charged.
I can only imagine. And from what they've said, it sounds like the connection was immediate and really profound.
Yeah.
They both talked about it feeling like they'd known each other their whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't just a professional encounter, a genuine friendship.
Right.
Took root really quickly.
Wow.
It makes you think about those intangible connections between artists
Yeah.
who share a similar passion.
Yeah. So this wasn't just a quick, pop into the studio thing.
No, not at all.
Their relationship really deepened beyond that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
their families started vacationing together.
Wow.
They became really involved in each other's lives,
Yeah.
which I think says a lot about the realness
Right.
of their bond.
Yeah.
And it all started with that letter,
Mm-hmm.
just a simple act of reaching out.
Yeah.
And look where it led to these significant relationships and, this whole creative partnership.
So it sounds like Elton inviting Brandy to Vegas, that wasn't just like a spur of the moment thing.
Right.
Like, I think that really aligns with his passion for discovering and supporting emerging artists.
Yeah, I mean, he's known for that.
Right.
Elton John has been a huge champion of new musicians for a long time,
Yeah.
and especially through his Apple Music show Rocket Hour.
Yeah.
He actively uses his platform to give visibility to artists
Yeah.
who might not fit into like the mainstream radio formats.
Right.
You
And
know?
I think that's so important.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone who's reached such legendary status,
Yeah.
to actually like turn around and nurture the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it shows a real commitment to the future of music.
Yeah. So who are some of these artists he's championed early on? Like, who are some examples?
Oh gosh, there's a whole eclectic mix.
Yeah.
Capel Roan Pony Club,
Okay.
Alison Pawn, And then there's this really cool young band, the Linda Lindas.
Ooh.
They're super energetic. He's given all of them so much support.
And that really connects to his willingness to collaborate with Brandy, doesn't it?
Totally.
Like he sees that same spark.
Yeah.
That same, artistic integrity in her work.
He definitely recognizes her immense talent.
Yeah.
And I think he's drawn to the authenticity and power of her artistry. It's fascinating, to see those qualities that established artists see in artists who are kind of on their way up.
Right. Now let's look at this from Brandy's perspective. I mean, her lifelong admiration for Elton, that runs really deep.
I mean, deep, that doesn't even really cover it.
Yeah.
She was a devoted fan from a young age. I mean, collecting records, photographs, like
Right.
full-on fan dedication,
Yeah.
right? And get this, she borrowed an Elton John book from the Boulevard Park Library
Okay.
on May 10, 1992.
Okay.
And she kept it for 33 years.
Wow.
33 years. I mean, that's incredible.
That's not just fandom. That's like a museum piece.
Right. That just embodies like the lasting impact that his work had on her.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just, a passing phase.
Right.
It was a constant presence
Yeah.
in her life.
So what was it about his music that resonated so much with her? Especially, those like formative years.
Well, as she was coming of age and coming to terms with her sexuality,
Yeah.
Elton John's music was like this flicker of hope in a confusing world. She even talked about like literally filling up an entire page
Oh, wow.
with "I love Elton John," like over and over.
Yeah.
It was more than just liking the music. It was finding this solace
Right.
and connection in his artistic expression. And I think this connects to this bigger idea of music often providing this sense of belonging
Yeah.
and understanding during those like key times in our lives.
Yeah. I could just picture her, like this young Brandy pouring her heart onto this page.
Yeah.
Never knowing that one day, not only would she meet her idol,
Yeah.
but, become close friends with him, and then this major collaborator.
Yeah. She's described it as insane and this strange and wonderful thing. So
Yeah.
it really does highlight this almost like dreamlike trajectory of her journey.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows you how much one artist can influence another.
Yeah.
Sometimes in ways they couldn't even imagine.
And now this amazing journey leads to a full collaborative album.
Right.
So tell us about Who Believes in Angels.
Okay, so Who Believes in Angels
Mm-hmm.
is Brandi Carlile's 8th studio album.
Okay.
And it's actually Elton John's 33rd studio album.
Wow.
They recorded it at Sunset Sound in Hollywood.
Wow. Okay.
And it's coming out on April 4th.
Okay.
So this is a huge deal for both of them.
Yeah.
It represents not just a collaboration, but like a real artistic partnership.
So why a whole album?
Right.
Like, why dedicate a whole album to this collaboration?
Well, Elton said he's wanted to work with Brandy more.
Yeah.
For a long time, he recognized her extraordinary talent.
Yeah.
And he talked about wanting to be challenged by her creatively and to push her as well.
Yeah.
So their shared goal was to make an album with energy and great songs.
Right. So not just an album of duets.
No.
Like, this was something different. Yeah. And I think that speaks to the drive of established artists to look for new creative sparks.
Yeah.
And not just get comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
And this recording process, it sounds like it was super intimate.
It does, right?
They even had cameras there.
Yeah. They were filming a lot of it.
Wow.
Capturing the highs. And Elton even joked
Yeah.
about maybe some lows, too.
Yeah.
But here's something interesting. Elton said he barely even noticed the cameras. And Brandy said she never even saw one.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that difference in their awareness, I think, gives us a little glimpse into their individual creative focuses.
Yeah. And Elton was kind of self-deprecating about his own behavior during recording.
He was.
But Brandy had a very different perspective on, like, watching him work.
Yeah, she said watching Elton's creative process was like watching Mozart.
Wow.
It was this effortless flow of ideas. And Elton described it as one of the greatest musical experiences of his life. And, coming from him,
That's really saying something.
Yeah.
So clearly there was some real synergy there.
And all this while Elton was dealing with this huge health challenge.
It's pretty unbelievable. For the past year, he's had this severe eye infection
Yeah.
that's really impacted his vision. He was nearly blind,
Wow.
couldn't read or watch TV.
But he's got this incredibly positive attitude about it.
He does.
Yeah.
He said even if his vision doesn't fully come back, he'll be okay.
Yeah.
because he can still play and sing.
Right.
So he sees those abilities
Right.
as these enduring gifts.
Yeah.
And it really resonates with how Brandy described his toughness. She called him Hercules,
Wow.
which seems pretty fitting.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's a survivor.
He is.
Yeah. So the last song on the album,
Okay.
When This Old World Is Done With Me,
Yeah.
that sounds like a really emotional one.
It is.
So what's the story behind that?
Well, he co-wrote that song
Okay.
with Bernie Taupin.
His longtime collaborator.
Yeah.
And it really hit Elton hard during
Wow.
the recording. It's all about mortality
Yeah.
and his deep desire to spend time
Right.
with his husband, David, and their two sons, Zachary and Elijah.
Yeah.
It's a really personal song,
Yeah.
you know?
So I imagine that must have been incredibly emotional to record.
Oh, totally. He actually broke down in tears in the studio
Wow.
when they were recording it. I mean, the realization that the song
Yeah.
is essentially about, his own death
Right.
and his desire to stay with his family forever.
Yeah.
It just overwhelmed him. And I think that really shows how artists use their work
Right.
to deal with, like, the deepest parts of human experience.
Yeah. And it seems like his family is his biggest priority.
It does.
Not his
yeah.
legacy, not his music.
Exactly. He said all he wants on his gravestone is he was a great dad.
Wow.
Nothing about his music.
That's amazing.
I know. His kids and his husband are clearly everything to him. And I think it really puts things in perspective.
It does.
Even for someone who's achieved such global fame,
Yeah. Yeah. So musically, did they kind of find some common ground,
They did.
even though their musical worlds seem kind of different?
Yeah, they actually discovered that they have surprisingly similar taste in music. And Elton's still introducing Brandi to new artists.
That's cool.
Yeah, and encouraging her to keep looking forward
Yeah.
in her own creative journey.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just see his passion for music
Right.
in all its forms never dies.
So this recording process, it sounds like it was super quick.
Yeah, incredibly fast. 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
In LA, right after Glastonbury.
Wow.
No pre-written material.
Wow.
So everything was just created right there on the spot.
That's incredible.
It is. Brandi described his creative process
Yeah.
in those moments as otherworldly. Like this vibrant energy, even when he was expressing some doubts.
Yeah.
It's like this magical, spontaneous connection.
So they're both parents too.
They are, yes.
So they have that shared experience.
Exactly. Elton has 2 sons,
Okay.
Zachary and Elijah.
Yeah.
And Brandy has 2 daughters,
Okay.
Evangeline, and she didn't mention the name
Okay.
of her other daughter.
Gotcha.
But it's interesting, they both have a son named Elijah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And they both shared some really insightful thoughts on raising their families.
Okay. What kind of things did they talk about?
Well, Elton said it's so important to him to raise his sons without fear or punishment. Yeah, he really emphasized that.
Okay.
He wants to create this loving, secure environment,
Right.
which is different from his own upbringing. And Randy's advice was to talk to your kids like they're little adults,
Okay.
be respectful, to encourage them
Yeah.
to express themselves.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, and they also noticed differences.
Yeah.
Elton's sons are into sports, and Brandy's daughters, at least so far,
Yeah.
aren't showing that same kind of passion for music.
Interesting. Okay, so it sounds like their connection goes beyond their families and the studio too.
It does.
With those Joanie jams.
Yeah, those Joanie jams.
Yeah.
They're another great example of their bond.
Yeah.
And their love for music history and community,
Yeah.
these informal gatherings.
Yeah.
They really helped Joanie Mitchell get back into music
That's wonderful.
after her health issues.
Yeah.
So it just shows the power of music
Right.
to heal and connect.
And Elton, he had this really nice analogy for those jams.
Yeah, he compared them to like those family sing-alongs
Oh, wow.
after the war.
Wow.
Like everybody just comes together
Yeah.
to sing and celebrate music
Right.
without any ego.
Right.
And there's this cute little story about Elton's way of getting ready to play.
What's that?
He just hands over his rings
Okay.
and says, "Hold my rings."
I love that. And Brandy has a connection to Joni Mitchell too, right?
Yeah, she's covered blue.
Oh, wow.
So clearly, they share these musical touchstones.
Right. And Brandy, she said she's having a hard time picking just one Elton John album
I know.
to cover.
Right. I mean, that's hard.
Right. His catalog is so huge.
Yeah.
I mean, what did she say?
Well, she considered Goodbye Yellow Brick Road
Okay.
for its like breadth and variety,
Yeah.
then Captain Fantastic for like
Yep.
the storytelling aspect of it.
Right.
But she's leaning towards Madman Across the Water because she loves the string arrangements.
Right.
it's so interesting to see the different things about his music
Yeah.
that resonate with her,
Yeah.
as a fellow artist.
Yeah. And I heard Elton had some really high praise for Brandy's voice.
Yeah, I mean, this must have been huge for her.
Yeah.
He called her probably one of the greatest singers I've ever heard.
Wow.
And her response was so emotional. She said she'll never forget it. And she called him the greatest that's ever been.
Wow.
So the respect is definitely mutual.
Yeah. It's great to hear that this collaboration has given Elton this, like, renewed sense of purpose.
Yeah, totally. He said he didn't want to just coast
Right. Yeah.
at this point in his career.
Right.
And that Brandy has given him this fresh start.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And it really shows you.
Yeah.
You should never stop pushing yourself and that dreams can come true.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, look at Brandy. From devoted fan to respected collaborator.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways from this amazing story of Elton John and Brandi Carlile?
Well, I think first, the impact of a simple gesture,
Yeah.
like Brandy's letter.
Right.
It can lead to these incredible connections.
Yeah.
Second, the magic that can happen when different generations collaborate.
Right.
When experiences and perspectives come together to create something new.
Right.
And lastly, the power of music and mentorship.
Yeah.
In shaping artistic journeys and, just enriching our lives.
And we can all hear the result of this partnership
Right.
when Who Believes in Angels comes out April 4th.
Absolutely. It's going to be something special.
I can't wait to hear it.
Too.
So as we leave you, listener, we want you to think about this. What connections and collaborations might be waiting for you? What letter could you write
Yeah.
to spark something amazing?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.